The biting New York wind whipped down Elm Street, swirling dead leaves around Maya Thompson's ankles as she hurried toward the imposing brick facade of Northwood High. The air itself seemed to hold a sense of expectation, a silent pressure familiar to any teenager navigating the treacherous landscape of adolescence. Maya, however, carried an extra layer of unease this crisp autumn morning. It wasn't just the looming first bell or the pressure of AP history that made her palms sweat. It was Ms. Eleanor Vance. Northwood High wasn't known for its vibrant art scene or its progressive social climate. It was a place where academic rigor reigned supreme and conformity was subtly encouraged. Maya, with her quiet demeanor and her secret love for jazz piano, often felt like a misplaced note in a rigidly structured symphony. The sprawling hallways, usually a cacophony of youthful chatter, seemed eerily hushed as Maya slipped through the main doors. Ms. Eleanor Vance, the stern history teacher, was a legend whispered in hushed tones. Her classes were notorious for their unforgiving workload. Her grading was famously harsh, and her gaze could silence even the most boisterous student. But it wasn't just the academic pressure that made her classes dreaded. It was a certain aloofness. It was a feeling among the students that she seemed to only see the potential of certain students, a feeling Maya understood well. Her classroom was reputed to be an intellectual battleground, where only the most prepared could survive, leaving many struggling to merely stay afloat. Unsolved mystery, indeed, were Vance's motivations. As Maya made her way to her locker, weaving through clusters of chattering students, she overheard snippets of conversations, the upcoming football game, the rumored new barista at the local coffee shop, and, inevitably, Miss Vance's latest assignment. Maya sighed, the weight of it all settling heavily on her shoulders. She excelled in most subjects, finding solace in the structured world of mathematics and science, but history felt like a constant uphill battle. It wasn't the subject matter itself that intimidated her. It was the pressure to perform, to meet Miss Vance's exacting standards, all while fighting the invisible current of being perpetually overlooked. She often felt as if she were on a solitary journey of discovery, constantly questioning her worth and her place in the overwhelmingly academic school. Reaching her locker, Maya fumbled with the combination, her mind racing. She had spent hours poring over her history textbook, memorizing dates and names, trying to anticipate Miss Vance's inevitable pop quizzes. Yet, a knot of anxiety remained in her stomach. She knew that no matter how hard she prepared, there was always a chance that she would be overlooked, her potential dismissed. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her passion for music, a secret refuge that Miss Vance knew nothing about, a world where she could express herself freely, a thrilling story waiting to be told. This inner world was her strength, and she would need it to get through this day. With a final click, the locker swung open, revealing the neatly organized chaos of textbooks and notebooks, a reflection of the organized chaos within her mind. The humid air in Miss Vance's classroom hung heavy with the scent of old textbooks and the barely suppressed energy of 25 teenagers. Today's lesson, the Reconstruction era. The projector hummed to life, displaying grainy images of post-Civil War America. Students murmured, shifting in their seats, clearly anticipating the inevitable barrage of dates and names. Miss Vance, as always, stood ramrod straight, her eyes scanning the rows of students. She began her lecture in her characteristic monotone, reciting facts and figures with an almost robotic precision. Maya, seated near the window, took diligent notes, trying to absorb every detail, her hand cramping slightly from the effort. She had meticulously prepared, determined to prove herself worthy of Miss Vance's attention. Then it happened. Miss Thompson, Miss Vance's voice cut through the hum of the projector. The sound of Maya's name, spoken in Vance's no-nonsense tone, sent a ripple of surprise through the room. All eyes turned toward Maya, some curious, others expectant. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. Unsolved mystery, she thought. Why now? Can you elaborate on the economic impact of sharecropping on formerly enslaved people? Miss Vance asked, her gaze piercing. Maya paused, took a breath, and answered. But what came out was more than mere recitation. It was an articulation and interpretation. She spoke clearly, not just regurgitating facts, but delving into the intricacies of the system, the social dynamics, and its cyclical nature of poverty and dependence. A quiet fell over the room. She realized now that this could be her journey of discovery. When Maya finished, Ms. Vance simply nodded, a barely perceptible flicker of something passing across her usually impassive face. "Correct," she said, then moved on to the next topic, leaving Maya both relieved and strangely unsettled. She had answered correctly, but the professor's attention felt like a thrilling story was about to unfold. For a moment she thought she imagined a slight shift in the air. The dismissal bell finally shrieked, releasing a wave of pent-up energy as students surged toward the door, eager to escape the confines of the classroom. Maya gathered her books, a sense of relief washing over her. She had survived another history lesson, another day of navigating the subtle pressures of Northwood High. But as she reached the doorway, Miss Vance's voice stopped her. "Ms. Thompson, could you stay behind for a moment?" Maya froze, her heart rate spiking. She glanced back at Miss Vance, who was now seated at her desk, her expression unreadable. This was unprecedented. Miss Vance never asked students to stay after class, unless they were in trouble. Had she said something wrong? Was her insightful answer somehow perceived as disrespectful? Unsolved mystery, she thought, as she approached the teacher's desk, notebook in hand. "Have a seat, Miss Thompson," Ms. Vance said, gesturing to the chair in front of her desk. Maya sat down, her nerves on edge. Ms. Vance paused, as if gathering her thoughts. "I was quite impressed with your explanation of the Reconstruction era today. I'd heard that you play." Maya's eyes went wide in surprise. "I do. It has become quite the thrilling story for me." "You play piano, correct?" "Yes, Ms. Vance. It is how I start my journey of discovery." "There's a talent show soon, and I'd like you to play," Ms. Vance said. "I'd like to see if you could play for the class. A short piece to demonstrate your talent." The request hung in the air, heavy with unspoken expectations. It wasn't an invitation. It was a challenge. Ms. Vance wanted to see what Maya was capable of, to test her abilities in a way that transcended the confines of the classroom. Maya grappled with the request, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Excitement, apprehension, and a touch of defiance all vying for dominance. This was a chance to prove herself, to show Ms. Vance and her classmates that she was more than just a quiet, overlooked student. This was a time to step out of her comfort zone and share her gift. It was the first step of a journey of discovery. But she knew that this was a test, a trial by piano, and she couldn't help but wonder if Miss Vance had an ulterior motive, a hidden agenda behind her unusual request. And Maya still didn't understand the unsolved mystery of Vance's request. The neon glow of the city lights painted streaks across Maya's bedroom ceiling as she tossed and turned, sleep eluding her. Miss Vance's request replayed in her mind, a relentless loop of expectation and apprehension. Play for the class. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. The weight of that unknown, the unsolved mystery of Vance's request, lay heavy on her chest. The piano was more than just an instrument to Maya. It was a connection to her grandfather, a renowned jazz musician, who had passed away a few years prior. She closed her eyes, and a vivid image of him filled her mind. His warm smile, his calloused hands dancing across the keys, the rich, soulful melodies that filled their small apartment. Flashback. A young Maya, barely tall enough to reach the pedals, sat beside her grandfather on the worn piano bench. His large hand guided hers, showing her the chords, the rhythm, the soul of jazz. "Music, Maya," he'd said, his voice raspy with age, "is more than just notes on a page. It's a way to tell your story, to share your heart with the world. Don't be afraid to let your spirit sing." In flashback, his words echoed in her ears, a reminder of the passion and freedom he had instilled in her. Yet, doubt lingered. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she froze, her fingers fumbling on the keys, proving Ms. Vance's unspoken assumptions correct? What if the thrilling story she wanted to share fell flat? She got out of bed and walked over to her own piano, the moonlight glinting off its polished surface. It was a cherished family heirloom, a symbol of her grandfather's legacy and a testament to the power of music. She traced her fingers across the ivory keys, a wave of familiarity washing over her. This instrument was her confidante, her solace, her escape from the pressures of Northwood High. She could lose herself for hours in these keys. But playing for Miss Vance and her classmates was different. It meant stepping outside her comfort zone, exposing her vulnerability to a judgmental audience. It meant risking failure, risking ridicule. Could she bear it? Was she strong enough to face the scrutiny, to overcome the ingrained prejudice that she sensed from Miss Vance? Could she really make this a journey of discovery that wasn't riddled with the pain of expectations? Despite her fears, a spark of defiance flickered within her. She wouldn't let doubt consume her. She wouldn't let Miss Vance's unspoken assumptions define her. She would play, not to prove herself to anyone, but to honor her grandfather's memory, and to unleash the music that resonated within her soul. The days leading up to Maya's performance were a blur of practice and anxiety. Every spare moment was spent at the piano, her fingers flying across the keys, honing her skills, battling her doubts. Her focus was total, knowing the thrilling story she would be telling. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at Northwood High crackled with anticipation. Rumors swirled through the hallways like wildfire. Some students whispered about Maya's hidden talent, expressing genuine curiosity. Others, fueled by skepticism and prejudice, dismissed it as an overblown rumor, a fleeting moment of attention for a quiet girl who didn't belong in the spotlight. Word spread to what journey of discovery she had been thrust on. Amidst the swirling rumors, Caleb, Maya's steadfast friend, provided a much-needed anchor of support. He sought her out after class, offering words of encouragement and a listening ear. "Don't let them get to you, Maya," he said, his eyes filled with genuine belief. "You've got this. I know you're amazing. What's been an unsolved mystery to others will soon be shining like a beacon of light." His words, simple yet sincere, helped to quiet the storm of anxiety within her. Caleb's unwavering faith in her abilities reminded Maya of her grandfather's unwavering encouragement. It gave her the strength to push past the doubts, to focus on the music, to channel her energy into perfecting her performance. As the day of the performance drew nearer, Maya's determination grew. She was no longer just playing to prove herself to Miss Vance or to silence the skeptics. She was playing for herself, for her grandfather, and for every other student who had ever felt overlooked or underestimated. She would show them that talent knows no boundaries, that passion can transcend prejudice, and that even the quietest voices can resonate with power and beauty. The stage was set, and Maya was ready to take her place. The auditorium at Northwood High buzzed with a nervous energy. The talent show was an annual event, but this year felt different. All eyes were on the new mystery Maya. Behind the curtain, Maya Thompson stood, her heart pounding. Miss Vance, surprisingly, offered a curt nod of encouragement before stepping onto the stage. "Our next performer is Maya Thompson," Miss Vance announced. Her voice amplified through the auditorium. The noise died to a hush. Maya took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The spotlight hit her, blindingly bright. She walked towards the grand piano. Unsolved mystery indeed, she thought. This performance, she thought, might mark the beginning of her thrilling story and journey of discovery. She adjusted the bench, placed her fingers on the keys, and closed her eyes. Then, silence gave way to sound. The first note reverberated through the auditorium, a clear, resonant tone that cut through the pre-performance jitters and hushed whispers. It was a simple note, but it held a depth of emotion that instantly captivated the audience. Maya's fingers moved with newfound confidence. She played a piece she had composed, a melody that drew inspiration from the jazz standards her grandfather loved, but with a modern twist that reflected her own journey. It was a piece about hidden potential, about overcoming obstacles, about finding strength in vulnerability. The notes swelled, filling the auditorium, creating an atmosphere of magic and emotion. As the music unfolded, Maya lost herself in the performance. She forgot about Miss Vance, about the skeptics, about the pressure. She was simply playing, letting the music flow through her, pouring her heart and soul into every note. The unsolved mystery of her own worth seemed to fade. Her fingers danced across the ivory keys, weaving intricate melodies, building to powerful crescendos, then softening into delicate passages. The piece told a thrilling story without words, a story of courage, resilience, and self-discovery. In the audience, faces began to change. Eyes widened with surprise, mouths dropped open in awe, and skeptical expressions melted into genuine admiration. Even Miss Vance, her face usually impassive, seemed to soften, her eyes fixed on Maya with a hint of something akin to pride. Ethan Hayes, the privileged classmate who had been so quick to dismiss Maya, sat frozen in his seat. His initial smirk had vanished, replaced by an expression of stunned disbelief. He had expected a hesitant, clumsy performance, but what he was witnessing was a revelation. He knew there was so much more to people than met the eye, and knew Maya had been on a secret journey of discovery until this moment. Maya poured more and more of herself into the music. The notes soared, the auditorium seeming to melt away around her. She knew now that she was not just playing notes, she was speaking her truth. At this moment, she felt that she was truly finally seen. The music became an anthem, a celebration of untapped potential. As the final note faded, a hush fell over the auditorium. The silence stretched, thick with emotion. For a breath, only the faintest hum of the stage lights broke the stillness. Maya sat poised at the piano, fingers still resting lightly on the keys, her chest rising and falling. She dared to look up. She glanced into the sea of faces before her, searching for any sign of their reaction. What unsolved mystery did they see now? Then a single clap broke the silence. It was Caleb, standing in the front row, his eyes shining with pride. The sound was a spark that ignited a wildfire. Applause erupted, starting as a scattered ripple, then building into a thunderous wave that washed over Maya. The auditorium erupted in a cacophony of cheers, whistles, and shouts of encouragement. Students who had previously ignored her now craned their necks to get a better view, their faces etched with a mixture of awe and admiration. Maya's peers, who had once seen her as ordinary or even invisible, found their prejudices crumbling before the power of her performance. She had brought to life her thrilling story. Even Ms. Vance, her usual composure momentarily disrupted, was clapping, though her expression remained carefully neutral. Still, the slight upturn of her lips didn't go unnoticed by Maya, or by anyone else. Something monumental, no matter how small, had shifted between them. Maybe both of them had been on some journey of discovery. The applause continued, seemingly endless, washing away years of feeling unseen and unheard. Maya stood, her legs slightly shaky, and gave a small bow. As the applause slowly subsided, a murmur rippled through the crowd. "That was incredible. I had no idea she could play like that. She's amazing." The whispers confirmed what Maya already knew. Her music had spoken volumes, silencing the doubts and shattering the preconceptions. Her talent had broken the invisible barriers that had held her back for so long. But, in the end, had she broken down the barriers that held Ms. Vance captive? And at what cost would they now journey into a new chapter of expectations? That was the lingering, unsolved mystery. As the applause waned, Ms. Vance approached the podium with a measured pace. Her expression was difficult to read, a carefully constructed mask that betrayed little of her inner thoughts. Still, Maya saw something flicker in the professor's eyes. She knew that she was truly a part of a thrilling story. "That was impressive, Ms. Thompson," she said, her voice betraying a slight tremor. She paused, then asked, "Where did you learn to play like that?" Maya met her gaze, a quiet confidence replacing her earlier nervousness. "My grandfather taught me," she replied, her voice clear and steady. "He was a jazz musician. He started me on a journey of discovery." Ms. Vance nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "Thank you, Ms. Thompson. You may return to your seat." She paused and glanced at the clock. "That will be all for today. Class dismissed." The students began to pack their belongings, the usual post-performance chatter strangely subdued. There was a weight in the room. Then, Ethan spoke up. "You made it sound like an unsolved mystery for us," he said, his voice hesitant but tinged with sincerity. "Thank you for sharing your gift." Ms. Vance nodded and then turned to the blackboard. "Class, as a follow-up from the talent show, read Chapter 12, and answer the questions in the back with that dismissal." Ms. Vance gathered her things and hurried from the auditorium and left the students with the memories of the performance and Ms. Vance's reaction. For Ms. Vance, what was to follow this revelation? The next day in Ms. Vance's class was thick with unspoken undercurrents. The air felt charged with residual electricity from Maya's performance. Ms. Vance, however, acted as if nothing had happened. She launched straight into her lecture, her voice as impassive as ever, but the silence was broken. "Honestly, it wasn't that good," Ethan drawled, leaning back in his chair, his voice laced with a familiar condescension. The words hung in the air, a blatant attempt to diminish what Maya had accomplished and to discredit her journey. Caleb bristled, his eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about, Ethan? She was amazing. Everyone was blown away." "It was just a talent show," Ethan retorted, waving his hand dismissively. "It's not like she solved the unsolved mystery of the universe or something. She shared a piece of herself," Caleb shot back, his voice rising in anger. "She showed a talent many didn't even know. Why would you cut someone down for a thrilling story?" "All right. Settle down, you two," Ms. Vance interjected, her voice sharp, but the tension in the room continued to escalate. The classroom fell silent, the unaddressed tension thickening as students picked sides. Ethan's sneer had drawn battle lines once more. There were students whose eyes glared with agreement, seeing Ethan's actions as vindication for their hidden feelings, and students whose eyes mirrored Caleb's outrage. Maya felt a familiar wave of exhaustion wash over her. It seemed that no matter how hard she tried, there would always be someone determined to tear her down. Ethan's words were a harsh reminder that even in moments of triumph, prejudice and bias could still rear their ugly heads. It almost made her wonder if there was any validity to Vance calling her on this journey of discovery. A heavy silence hung in the air after Ethan's words, pregnant with unspoken thoughts and simmering resentment. The usual classroom hum had disappeared, replaced by the sound of shallow breaths, and Maya could feel all eyes fixated on her. Enough, she thought. Enough of the whispers, the assumptions, the subtle and not-so-subtle attempts to diminish her work. Something inside her snapped. Maya slowly rose from her seat, her gaze meeting Ethan's challenging stare. The silence now was different, filled with expectancy. "It's not about solving the unsolved mystery of the universe, Ethan," Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady, considering the turmoil within her. "It's about having the courage to share who you are, to put yourself out there, even when you know there will be people who try to tear you down." She turned her gaze to encompass the entire class, including Ms. Vance, who watched her with a strangely attentive expression. Maya could feel how important it was to continue her thrilling story and take control of her journey of discovery. "You all see me as quiet, as invisible," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "But you don't know me. You don't know my story, my passion, my struggles. And you assume things, you make judgments based on stereotypes and prejudices that have nothing to do with who I am as a person." She turned her attention to Miss Vance. "Maybe the real unsolved mystery is why you even asked me in the first place. Was it because of the music or something else, Miss Vance? I deserve to know why you have me on this journey of discovery, and I need to know now." For a long moment Miss Vance remained silent, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. The weight of Maya's words hung heavy in the air, challenging not only Ethan's casual prejudice, but also Miss Vance's own unspoken biases. Maya stared back, unwavering in her determination, refusing to let her voice be silenced any longer. The power in the room had shifted. The tension in the room was palpable, hanging heavy in the air as Miss Vance finally broke the long silence. "You're right, Maya," she began, her voice low and laced with unexpected vulnerability. "I did have preconceptions. I saw your quietness as a lack of engagement, a lack of potential. And I was wrong." She paused, taking a deep breath, her gaze sweeping across the room. "My experiences have colored my views. As you have been on a journey of discovery, perhaps I too had been on one I wasn't even aware of." Looking at Maya, the professor said, "But perhaps it is time I too come out and write a thrilling story about coming to terms with my own shortcomings." Her voice hitched, the unsolved mystery that's lived within me. "I do apologize," Maya, turning to face the class. Ms. Vance then began to speak. "I realize now that I need to be better. And I have heard you." Maya, the words hung there. A fragile truce offered in the aftermath of conflict. The unspoken words resonated in the classroom. At that moment Maya knew that both would now be able to close their respective doors and open an entirely new one together. The transformation in Miss Vance's class was subtle, but undeniable. The air felt lighter, more open. The professor, now shed of her cold exterior, made active attempts to engage with students, to see them as individuals, The weight of the unsolved mystery was finally lifted. Maya continued to play the piano, not just for herself, but for others. She had started on a journey of discovery, and now her influence began to radiate, and students who had previously been quiet or hesitant began to share their own passions and talents. Her thrilling story was far from over. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Caleb approached Maya, a shy smile on his face. "So," he said, "about that talent show, would you maybe want to, grab some ice cream after school sometime?" Maya smiled back, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. "I'd like that, Caleb," she said. They walked out of the classroom together, side by side, two young people embarking on a new beginning, forever bound by the shared experience of music, courage, and the transformative power of understanding. The story of Maya Thompson offers powerful lessons for navigating life's challenges. First, don't underestimate yourself or others. Hidden talents and potential often lie beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Dare to step outside your comfort zone as Maya did, and embrace opportunities to share your unique gifts, even when fear and self-doubt creep in. Find the courage to express yourself authentically and stand up for what you believe in, even when faced with prejudice or negativity. Just like her thrilling story, remember that kindness and support can transform perception. Be a Caleb to someone in your life, offering encouragement and belief in their abilities. And finally, be open to growth and transformation. Miss Vance's journey demonstrates that it's never too late to confront your biases, learn from your mistakes, and create a more inclusive environment. Open your mind for a journey of discovery. Like any good book, be open to new chapters. By embracing vulnerability, speaking your truth, and fostering understanding, you too can create your own fulfilling and meaningful story.